In a small village at the edge of a dense forest, there existed a secret whispered about only in fear. The people were simple, working hard in the fields, tending to their cattle, and living close to nature. But there was one thing they didn't talk about: the children who had disappeared, who had started behaving strangely, who had been changed by something darker. This was a story that would remain hidden for years, until one young boy, tormented by his own guilt, came forward to expose the horror that had taken root in the heart of his village. It began innocently enough, like so many dark tales do. An old woman named Mamba, rumored to be hundreds of years old, appeared in the village one autumn evening. She was not from the village. She came from the forest with stories and promises of power. She had no family, no friends, and yet people noticed that children seemed to flock to her, drawn by an unexplainable force. Mamba spoke in soft, silken tones, and the children, full of youthful curiosity, began to gather around her. At first, it was just harmless conversation. She told them tales of far-off lands, of power beyond the human world, and of spirits who could protect and guide them. Slowly, she began to share her darker secret. You see, she would say, there is a power that lies within all of us, a power that can protect those we love and grant us things others only dream of. But to unlock it, there is a price. The children listened with wide eyes, not fully understanding what they were getting into. One by one, they were initiated. A simple promise to give themselves over to the spirits and the forest in exchange for power. None of them realized that the price would be far higher than they could imagine. The first child to bring someone to Mamba was Chika, a bright and friendly boy who had always been eager to please. He was told to bring a loved one, someone close to his heart, and he would be rewarded. Mamba explained that the power came from a sacrifice, from giving up something you loved in the most extreme way. Chika, afraid but too eager to back out now, decided to bring his younger sister, Oluchi, who had always been the light of their home. He was instructed to bring her to the woods in the dead of night, under the cover of darkness. When they arrived at the clearing, Mamba and the other children were waiting. Chika's heart pounded, but he was too scared to turn back. Without warning, Mamba began chanting and the other children gathered around, holding hands. Chika was told to hold Oluchi's hand, and as they stood there, the forest grew unnaturally still. The trees seemed to close in on them. The ritual was simple. Oluchi was to be sacrificed, her heart offered to the spirit in exchange for power. The moment she was killed, the others would eat her flesh, and the dark power would flow through them all. Chika, his hands trembling, watched as Mamba drew a knife, the blade gleaming in the moonlight. Oluchi, confused and frightened, tried to run, but it was too late. The others held her down. Chika, in a moment of overwhelming fear and guilt, didn't know what to do. He had been promised power, but he hadn't imagined it would be like this. Among the children who participated in this dark ritual was Tariq, a quiet, reserved boy who loved his mother more than anything else in the world. He wasn't like the others. He didn't crave power or the status that came with being part of Mamba's cult, but he was too scared to refuse. He took his share of the meat just like everyone else, but he never ate it. Instead, Tariq would sneak the meat home, hiding it in the dark corners of his house. His mother, who worked hard to care for him, would cook the meat unaware of its origin. Tariq had its reasons. He couldn't bear to eat the flesh of his own people, but at the same time he knew that refusing to participate would mean certain death. His love for his mother kept him from following the dark path fully, but every time he brought home the meat, it twisted something inside him. This pattern continued, day after day, until the day came that Tariq was called to bring his own loved one. the one he had always protected, into the cult. The cult leaders, now fully corrupted by their dark power, demanded Tariq bring his mother. He was no longer a boy but a young man, now a key part of the group. Tariq was told that this was the final test, the final sacrifice that would bind him fully to the spirit. But Tariq refused. The pressure on him grew unbearable. The other children, no longer the innocent friends he once knew, began to turn on him. They laughed at him, calling him weak. Mamba, now much more sinister and twisted, threatened him with unimaginable consequences if he didn't comply. The first signs of spiritual retribution began almost immediately. Tariq began to see shadows moving in the corners of his eyes. At night, he heard whispers from the forest calling him to join them. His mother, still unaware of the dark truth, noticed her son's strange behavior, the pale look in his eyes and the deep fatigue that weighed him down. One night, as he lay in bed, he heard footsteps outside his window. He looked out, but there was no one there. The air around him felt thick, as if the very atmosphere had become heavy with a malevolent force. That's when he knew it was no longer just a cult, it was a spiritual war. The cult leaders were not done with him. They began to torment him, sending spirits to haunt his every step. In the dark of night, strange marks appeared on his skin, as if something invisible was carving symbols into him. His dreams were filled with terrifying visions of his mother being sacrificed, her body torn apart by the other children and her screams filling the air. He could no longer sleep. His body grew weaker and his mind began to crack under the pressure. He had once been a bright, happy boy, but now he was nothing more than a hollow shell slowly being consumed by the darkness that Mamba had unleashed. Desperate, Tariq made his decision. He would not bring his mother to the sacrifice, but neither could he allow himself to remain silent any longer. In a moment of madness and desperation, Tariq stumbled into the village one evening, his clothes tattered, his eyes wild with fear. He sought out the leaders, the wise men and women who had watched over the village for generations. They listened to his story with growing horror, the shock of hearing the truth about what had been happening to the children. The elders knew that something had to be done, but it would not be easy. They gathered together, calling on the spirit of their ancestors to fight against the evil that had taken root. With their wisdom and power, they prepared to confront Mamba and her followers. The battle was fierce. The cult fought back with all their might, using the dark magic that had bound them together. But the elders, armed with ancient knowledge and the protection of their ancestors, slowly began to push back the darkness. The forest trembled as the power of the spirit clashed with the evil that Mamba had summoned. At last, the cult was broken. Mamba disappeared into the forest, never to be seen again. The children, their eyes cleared of the dark magic, returned to their family, but the scars of their actions will never fade. The village was left to heal, but the damage had been done. Tariq's mother, who had never known the horrors her son had faced, held him close, her heart broken by the trauma he had endured. Tariq could never forget the darkness, nor the terrible price that had been paid for power. The villagers learned the lesson, but at a great cost. Love and loyalty, when pushed too far, can lead to unspeakable consequences, and even the purest heart can be corrupted by the dark forces lurking just beyond our sight. That's a wrap on today's story. Remember, no matter the struggle, together we can rise again. If you love this tale and want more, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss out. Got a story or thoughts to share? Drop it in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching.